Hey everybody, welcome back into Sobriety and Everything Else. My name is Eric Andrew. I am your sobriety coach and your host for this afternoon's show. And I'm coming to you live, well, sort of live, from my studios in my, wait for it, dining room. Yes, sirree, we don't spare any expense here, my dining room. A little bit of a kind of a side note. That's kind of fun to say, but this is my 20th episode. Woohoo! 2020, 20th episode. Happy to be here. Happy to be serving you. The 20 episodes is pretty cool. I'm glad I got to this point. I think we've put out some decent content, and I hope that we continue to do that. And I would love to hear from all of you about what you've gotten from the 20 episodes. All of that. I would love to get enough where I could share some of that with people, maybe a little side story about how it's benefited you, maybe what you got, maybe that you passed it along to a friend and it helped a friend out, whatever it might be. So please feel free to email me any thoughts, any little side stories or anything that has been going on in regards to your enjoyment of the podcast. And you can do that at Eric Andrew Coaching 12 at gmail.com. That's Eric Andrew Coaching 12 at gmail.com. I had to think about that for a second. I wanted to get it right for you. I will also drop that all in the notes at the bottom, a few notes that I do. But anyway, welcome back in. I guess I also owe you a little bit of an apology. This has been a crazy month. I haven't posted or done any kind of recording for about a month. Been a super busy month, a lot of things going on in my life that I won't go into all the gory details about them. They've all been good, but they've just been super busy and really left me minimal time just to rest. So I felt it was important to rest and be kind of clear-headed when I did a podcast for you. And that's really kind of where I want to start. So when we get into recovery and we get into sobriety and we start to move along the trail and we hit all these mile markers and all this other stuff. And, I always talk about, like, after we get through that first year, kind of all the rah-rah stuff starts to end. And what I mean by that is there's not this monthly or daily kind of, oh, you've hit 30 days. Oh, you hit 60 days. Oh, you hit 90 days. Woohoo, 100 days, 6 months, whatever it is, a year. And then we kind of hit that year and it kind of falls off. People stop. It's almost like people stop worrying about us. People stop thinking about it. People start going, oh, well, they've got a year. They're probably okay. Right. I really think it's at that point that the real work starts. And what I mean by that is we get through the recovery phase of I need to stay away from this substance. And what do I need to do that? To getting kind of to a place where that, I'm not going to say is ever controlled or completely controlled, but we understand the things that we need to do to try to keep it in its place and at bay. So then what starts to come up are all the other things that we need to work on. And I'm bringing this up because I went through this in the last month of where I really struggled. I struggled. Yes, there were a few times during this month where I kind of was, almost whereas was at the place of having what they call the fuck-its, where, I was like, well, why am I doing all of this stuff? This is crazy. What's going on here? There was a couple of things that went on during this month that were, I wouldn't say negative, but just some letdowns that kind of bothered me a little bit. I'm having trouble with my knee right now, and I'm actually going to the doctor about that this week. I'm hoping and praying it's not something that I'm going to need surgery for, but we'll see. I, had a situation with a friend that I was hoping was going to turn into something more, and but I knew that they were going through an awful lot. So I kind of realized that pretty clearly. I did ask for something, and they told me why they could not do it, and so I had to let that go. And that was a little bit disheartening. And I knew, I knew that it was where it was at. I knew all of that, but you still get down. You get down on yourself a little bit. You get down on the process. You start to go, why me? Why me? All of that very selfish kind of feeling comes back in. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. And so, in all of that, I had to really kind of go back to remembering the things that really matter and understand why I was here and understand what had to happen. And, a lot of times when I get into these, self-pity things, it's really because I'm somewhere in the back of my mind expecting somebody to come in and just make it all right, right? The right woman, the right situation at work, the right, social situation just to happen, just to come in and happen, and it's going to be great, right? That the podcast takes off, that, all these things happen. But then I have to think about, number one, how I got to where I'm at. And number two, some words of wisdom that I've heard along the way. So number one, how I got to where I'm at was because of me. I did it. I made the choice to get sober. I made the choice to go down this path. I made the choice to put the work in, to try. I made the choice to start the podcast. I sat here and I learned how to put it together and what, program I needed to be using in order to record. I did that. Yeah, I mean, I had some input from a few people that had done things before, but for the most part, I did it. I didn't sit there and wait for them to come and make it happen. And I've realized, in my life that really, if I want anything to happen, I've got to do it, and it made me think of another thing. And I wanted to bring this up to you today. So you've probably heard me talk about, I'm bringing up my phone because it's right on my phone, and I will, pardon me, have to use my glasses here in a moment. But I have talked to you in the past about a woman by the name of Laura McKowen. And if you don't remember, I will give you a brief synopsis of who she is, and how I came to find her. So in the early days of my recovery, I really got into podcasts because one of the first podcasts I really listened to was one called Recovery Elevator. That was Paul Churchill runs that, and he has his own group, which I ended up joining, and I was with them for the bigger part of 6 years. There's some other people. I used to listen to Annie Grace, This Naked Mind, and I had read her book. And actually, her book was the book which was called This Naked Mind. Highly recommend it, and I will drop that in the show notes as well. She opened my eyes to the whole idea of how bad alcohol is on your body and on your mind, and really helped me to understand why I needed to walk away from it. And again, when I say this stuff, I'm talking about me. I'm not telling you this is what your life is like. I'm not telling you that this is what you should do. I'm not telling you that you should have these views or accept the views of others. You have to make that decision on your own. This is just to give you some information, and you decide, hey, I want to look at that more and more deeply, or I don't really care about it. I'm not that interested. I don't believe or agree with that. I'm going to guess, though, if you're sitting here listening to me and you are now 8.5 minutes into this podcast, that you're probably interested in this. So I'm going to keep going. So that book really opened my eyes. Paul Churchill also wrote a book called Alcohol is Shit, and I would highly recommend that book. It's very good. It's also a guy's perspective of the process that he went through. There's a couple other books out there that were written by men. I think Rich Roll has a book where he talks about his sobriety. There's a couple others, and I'll try to drop some of that into the show notes. Certainly you can look these people up on your own. But the person I'm going to talk about right now, and I know I've talked about her before because she is one of my heroes in this arena, is Laura McKowen. Laura McKowen, how I came to find her was she did a podcast called Home, and she did this with another person, and I don't want to get into that just only because I'm going to make this way too long. So I'm going to stick to just talking about her. However, the other person is very popular too. So Laura McKowen was doing a podcast called Home. And so I'd listened to that, and I knew about her, and I had, I don't know if I'd read the book yet. I think I might have gotten the book and read it. I can't remember. But she wrote a book called We Are the Luckiest. And this book actually kind of becomes a foundation to a bunch of things that I'm about to tell you. Um, so anyway, 2020 happens, right? So 2019, I go into sobriety. 2020 happens. That is the year of COVID. And Laura McKowen decides to run a series, and I think it was about somewhere between 6 to 10 Zoom meets for people for free to come on to Zoom meets and just talk about what they were going through and their sobriety or their idea about sobriety, wanting to, kind of get away from the addiction process, because we were starting to see and find that a lot of people now all of a sudden were at home all the time and their drinking was picking up. So many people have come into this world of sobriety since then, and their story revolves around exactly that, 2020 and what happened there. So, and I think a lot of it was just a recognition of what was already there, but it ramped up because there's nothing else to do, right? So people were just sitting, and of all the places they didn't close were liquor stores. And here's a little funny side note to all that. Not funny, actually sad side note to all of that. The reason they didn't, they were afraid that if they did close the liquor stores, that they would have a bigger problem in emergency rooms with people going through alcohol withdrawal than they would have uh, in the hospital for people who actually had COVID. And the hospitals were so overrun with COVID patients that they could not have handled anything else. So the theory was keep the liquor stores open, let people drink, and that issue will get dealt with at a later date. Um, and as you know, one of the things we found through COVID was this idea of government coming in and talking about, what we should or shouldn't do just doesn't fly very well with most Americans. So therefore, nobody's coming in to say, hey, you need to stop drinking alcohol. You're going to have to do it. So again, brings me back to Laura McKowen. So Laura McKowen starts running these free, like I said, 6 to 10 Zoom meets, and if you were part of her, I think you had to be on her Instagram or something like that, but whatever it was, and you could get the information, and then just come on whenever she had them. So I went to like 3 or 4 of those, and they were great. And towards the end of that, she started talking about starting a group, and the group that she ended up starting was called We Are the Luckiest, and it's a group that meets. They meet online. They have a bunch of Zoom meetings that are non-dogma Zoom meetings about alcohol. All right, so instead of them being an AA meeting or NA meeting or a SMART recovery meeting or a Celebrate recovery or anything like that, Dharma recovery meetings, they are just non-dogmatic meetings about quitting alcohol. And they offer, I don't know, 4 or 5 a day, pretty much 7 days a week. It might be more than that, actually. But so you can always get a meeting. And that was great during COVID when everything was shut down. You couldn't get to meetings. And so COVID ends and, AA meetings start coming back to live and all that kind of stuff. But these groups like We Are the Luckiest and Recovery Elevator continue, and they still have a following, and they still have people that go on there, and they still have their Zoom meetings and do all of that. Laura McKowen, in her book We Are the Luckiest, and this is where I'm wanting to get to. So she's done all this stuff. She created this group. There's a lot of people in the group. But one of the things that she did that is kind of the foundation of the group and is something that I really like to go back to, especially when you talk about sobriety and what is the role, are the people trying to get sober. What is the role here? What do we have to accept and what do we not have to accept? So there's 9, at the end of her book, she wrote a thing called The 9 Things, right? And this has become like a big anthem for not only We Are the Luckiest Club, but for a lot of people out there. And certainly is an anthem for me, but I'm going to focus in on just 2 of them. All right. The very first 2 of them, she starts out by, well, I'll read them all to you and then I'll come back to the first 2. So there's 9, right? It's not your fault. So number 1 is it's not your fault. it is your responsibility. That's number 2. Number 3, it's unfair that this is your thing. Number 4, this is your thing. Number 5, this will never stop being your thing until you face it. Number 6, you cannot do it alone. Number 7, only you can do it. Number 8, I love you. Number 9, I will never stop reminding you of these things. So, first off, I get choked up all the time on the last one. It just brings a lump to my throat because, one of the things that I recognized for myself in my own beginnings before I started in recovery was this sense of not feeling heard, not feeling wanted, not feeling like I was part of anything. And that was me. I'm not saying anybody was doing anything, because nobody was. It was me. It was the way I was looking at the world and the way that I saw everything. And that's unfortunate, but that's kind of what was going on. So it really is a strong thing for me to read that last line, that we will not stop reminding you of these things. But for today, I want to focus on the first 2. So the first one is, it is not your fault. So if we think about that for a moment, it is not your fault, meaning, what has happened, this alcoholism or drug abuse or whatever it is that's happening to you, it's coming from other places. So society is part of that, and the people that you are connected to. Trauma is part of that. So familial trauma can be part of that. Things that have happened growing up in our own families, whether we grew up with parents that had addiction issues or grandparents that might have had addiction issues. Maybe we grew up with parents that had trauma issues and or depression issues or mental health issues, and that was seen in the household, or it played out in the household in some way. Those things can play a role. Certainly just being around the wrong group of people and making them our friend group. Again, that's usually connected to how we feel about ourselves, which is, again, usually connected to a trauma or something to that nature. Trauma, by the way, does not always have to be in the form of childhood trauma. Trauma could be something that happened to you last year or last week, and it's, you're not getting over it. So traumas are things that we don't get past, that we don't let go of in our brain. We hang on to it, and it informs us in how we deal with other things. So loosely based, doctor descript of it, and my opinion of how I've made sense of it in my own life for my own trauma. So it's not your fault. It happened. Society plays a role in this too. I mean, look at, especially with alcohol, look at how we market that to people. Literally for every event that exists in the world, we market alcohol to that event, right? Even funerals, we market alcohol. So alcohol is in every fiber of our lives. It's hard to get away from it. It's hard for it not to be there. So that is another big part of it, is we've made it okay. We're putting a drug in our system that's actually really bad on our organs and horrible for our bodies, and we've okayed it. We've said, hey, oh no, it's good for you. It relaxes you. It allows you to have more fun, all this other stuff. So we've trained you, me, all of us, to look at it from that perspective, that it's a positive, good thing that's in everybody's life. And, how dare you have a problem with it, right? The second part, though, is the part that I'm really wanting to focus on. It's not your fault is the first part, but it is your responsibility. So what do we mean by that? And what does that mean? And what did that mean for me in this last month? So this last month, like I said, there were times where I was like, oh, you know what, this sucks and fuck it. And then I got down on myself about things that were going on and all this other stuff. And then I started thinking, but all of this stems from your own recovery. And your own recovery is happening because you realized and you picked up the mantle and you listened to what people were telling you and understood that it's your responsibility to get better. It's your responsibility to grow. It's your responsibility to let go of things that have put you in those places that, open the door to drinking and drinking in excess. So you need to stop whining. Now, this is me talking to me, not talking to you, but you need to stop whining and get over yourself and realize that life goes on and life changes, and it's part of the process. And there's going to be good with bad, and we've learned how to accept that. So let's continue to accept that, and let's continue to do positive things and be a positive person in our lives. And that's really, to me, when I say it's my responsibility, that's where I'm at with it. That I need to do the right thing. I need to keep doing the next right thing. So, okay, let's say you're sitting there and you are still drinking. In fact, you're watching this as you're drinking. And you're thinking, all right, well, what's my responsibility? How is this my responsibility? What do I need to do for this to be my responsibility? The first step would be to take whatever's in that glass or whatever's in that can, whatever's left, to go over to your sink and pour it down the drain. That would be the first step. Now, that's pretty dramatic, right? That's pretty pushing it, right? But it's that kind of a shock moment that your system needs. You need to shock your system and go, I'm done doing it this way. I'm done with this lifestyle. I don't want this anymore. I don't want to feel like shit anymore. I don't want to feel negative anymore. I don't want to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with sweats anymore. I don't want to wake up at 3 in the morning with all kinds of anxiety and cursing my life because I did it again. I drank again. I used again, whatever it might be. I don't want that anymore. I want to sleep through the night. I want to feel rested when I wake up. I want to be alert and focused at my job. I want those things, and the only way I'm going to get them is if I walk over to the sink right now and pour this down the drain, get the bottle, get the other cans, and do the same thing, and make this day one of being alcohol free or being drug free or whatever it might be. That's your responsibility. You are the only one that can do that. No one else can do that. I'm saying this to you and I'm saying how to do it, but I can't make you do it. Nobody can make you do it. Even somebody standing in a room right now can't make you do it. In fact, if somebody's standing in a room and listening to this, I almost dare them to pick up your can of beer and go over to the sink and pour it out, because I'd like to see what happens next. Think about it. What's going to happen next? Are you going to get angry? Are you going to maybe even throw a punch or push them or grab at the can or throw them out of your house? What are you going to do? Because if you're not ready, it's not going to happen. If you're not ready to take on the responsibility, it's not going to happen. And this isn't a browbeating thing. I'm not trying to shame you into doing anything. This is about just understanding where the first step comes from. It has to come from you. And in recovery, so as you go down the road, it still has to come from you. So the next step in me getting better in my emotional sobriety, it's got to start with me. The next step in getting better in saving money, it's got to start with me. The next step in being able to have better relationships with people, it's got to start with me. I have to do it. Those people aren't going to do it. That job isn't going to do it. That bank account isn't going to do it for me. I have to put money in that bank account and I have to decide not to touch it. That's the way that works. It's my responsibility. Basically saying, don't get mad at me for this, but I'm just going to say it because I have to say it to myself, grow the fuck up, right? Just grow the fuck up and realize that if you want anything good in your life, you have to do it. And this isn't even talking about alcohol or drugs or anything else, but if you want anything good in your life, you have to look at your life and go, what in my life is holding me back? Let me get rid of it. And what in my life is helping me move forward? Let me focus on that and feed it and make it stronger and move forward with it. What do I got to do each and every day to do better at my job? What do I got to do each and every day to wake up, refreshed? What do I got to do each and every day to stay focused? What do I have to do each and every day to have the people in my life that I love me back the same way? What do I have to do to make that happen? That's the goal. That's the goal. Now, again, it's not up to me to make you do that. It's not up to your significant other to make you do that, or your mother or your father or your brother or your sister or your best buddy. It's not up to any of them. They are not responsible for you. You are responsible for you. Now, as I say that, I'm going to try to start to wrap this up. Part of me doing this podcast is to help me too. By saying these things out loud to you guys, or giving you this example, I'm also saying it to myself internally. That I have to do these things for myself as well. And I have to be reminded all the time that, these are the things that I need to do. Listen, I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. My brain wants to go to the easy way out all the time. Even now, I have 6+ years in, and it still wants to go to the easy way out. That's the way my brain works. And I would venture a guess that probably many of you could tell me the same thing, right? I mean, and if you can't, you're going to learn that's the case. Most of us that relapse in some way or another, whether it's back to the substance that we were using, or maybe it's our emotional relapse, because people can have what they call dry drunk issues, where their anger comes out and their non ability to function in a relationship comes out, and all of those things. That's kind of you being that dry drunk, or the dry addict that's really not getting help or trying to get help, just trying to white knuckle it on your own. It's in the end of the day, you have to keep doing the work. And I needed to remind myself of that this week. And I wanted to just share that with you. Some of the people out there that are talking that talk and walking that walk are people like Laura McKowen, are people, many people in the podcast world, many people that are personalities on television or movies, or music personalities. You're starting to see more and more people come out. Eminem has, what's he have, 15 years, 16 years, 17 years, something like that, maybe even close to 20. I keep forgetting how many years it is, but he's got a lot of years. Eminem, a lot of years, and he almost died. If you ever heard his story, look it up. The Eminem story, the story of his recovery, the beginnings of his recovery. Pretty interesting. So it's out there. People are doing it, but they're doing it because they've accepted responsibility to do it. So if you're ready to accept the responsibility, then I commend you for that, because it's a big step, and I wish you all the luck. I am available if you want to reach out to me, not necessarily to coach you, but to just give you some words of wisdom, or be there for you. We can make it a formal coaching thing for sure, but we don't have to. I just want to, I'd love to hear from you and say, hey, I heard this podcast, or I watched a podcast, and I'm ready to take the responsibility on. So here's wishing you all the best. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be doing episode 20 about this. I will drop in the show notes about Laura McKowen and some others that I brought up today. And so have a great rest of your day and a great couple of weeks, and I will talk to you very soon. Take care.